Creating the Perfect Company from the organizational experts, Multiview Incorporated. This content is based on NDI's work with over 1,300 organizations, extracting 989 data elements with 922 cross-calculations over 27 years on a monthly basis, and then systematizing the operational success patterns of the 90th percentile. Our intent is to get beyond the brag and the boast, and simply share insights from our experience without manipulation or coercion to sell anything, except helpful ideas. These messages range from intimate recordings from the awakened forest to concerts, national conferences, and broadcasts.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the seldom spoken aspects of leadership. And this event, there's hundreds of people in it. I know there are a lot of organizations are doing kind of the large group format and the big screen where there's lots of people attending. And I think that group interaction is a good thing. And then obviously, but watching it by yourself is great. And of course, it's being recorded. So that possibly, if you deem it worthy, it can be incorporated into your proprietary leadership development system. Because again, as I have reviewed all these hospices, even preparing for this, I'm just amazed at those people, those organizations that focus on leadership, how they become a leadership factory, reproducing what they have become. And so I thank you for taking the time. I don't know exactly how long this will go, but I don't want to leave anything on the table either. Now, of course, my job is what? To be as helpful as I can be. And I lost, again, my second child, like 18 months ago. And I kind of, part of my mission in life anymore, I said, I'm just going to devote myself to goodness and helpfulness. And this is part of it. So I'm just kind of putting it out there like that. And I'm not going to try to impress you. I find that when I try to impress people, I don't. Best to get beyond the boast, the brag, the production, and just be yourself. And not try to impress people. And a lot of you know already, I don't like to talk about this squishy topic of leadership. I find it can be a little vain. I like to listen to people. I like to hear people's comments on it. I don't like to talk about it myself. And so we'll go ahead and start to get into this. Again, I show up to these things just to see what I'm going to say. So we'll see how it all comes out. And yeah, let's do it. So I have no time for small talk at this point in my career or life. And so we'll just talk plain. And the value of humility. You take a look at almost all great leaders. Though these are usually strong characters, at least people with a great sense of direction and directional correctness, they usually have a spirit or attitude of humility and openness, which allows a person to suspend their current belief systems or views of the world in order to at least consider alternative ideas. Because without such space, one drifts into the domain of pride or arrogance that does not allow anything new in. And so I think it's good to wipe the slate clean often and say, I don't know anything. And start from that bedrock and build back. Failure teaches you reality better than wins. any leader, if you're really going someplace, if you're really an innovator, you're risking. So there has to be, in a real leader, this tolerance for risk, or risk tolerance, if you want to language it like that. Which invariably, there's going to be missteps. Just like the jet going from Hawaii to LA is going to have to make 1,000 course corrections along the way. There are no straight lines in this world. Not really. Not in the natural world. We could say we make our own, but even those are not perfect lines. There are no zeros. Or nothing. There's always this correction element. And this idea of failing in leadership is something that should give you some comfort when you start to take a look at all the different possible outcomes from your decisions. But rather than procrastinating and being the ineffective leader that is not bold in making the move, where it's like, okay, let's take some well-placed shots in this direction, knowing, again, if that directional correctness is good. But that pain is useful because pain, again, registers as such a higher vibration than wins. And we just tend to remember that. Probably going back to our ancestors and the survival instinct, saying, hey, I wouldn't get around that dinosaur. I saw him eat one guy. And so we might not want to do that. Okay, word for new leaders. I realize we have a wide gamut of leaders that have been in the saddle for many years. We have a lot of newer leaders, a higher proportion. And new leaders, invariably, most of you are going to suffer from the imposter feeling. What qualifies me to be in a position of authority, in a position of leadership? Almost everybody has that. All teachers have that. Why should I be teaching on this topic? So there's an element of courage that has to be introduced to say, hey, this is normal, and power through. You'll get used to it over time. I shouldn't say used to it. I'm always a little squeamish. Could come from some latent insecurities that I'm still trying to overcome. I mean, even before doing these kinds of talks, I feel like throwing up usually. There's a nerve thing, or doing a concert or musical performance. I always feel that weirdness, but that's okay. And so get over the imposter feeling. You're gonna be okay, and everybody has to start someplace. And the surprising thing on this, and you'll see all these things in small letters here, your age is not a major factor in leadership. I remember I ran my first really large thing at age 32 because Deborah, who was my mom, raised me under her wing as the CEO, and she made me her number 2. I was only 32 years old. I mean, I'm the snot-nosed kids with hundreds and hundreds of employees and departments and business segments. And people got behind it. Or background. I've run clinical operations, inpatient units. I don't have a clinical background. People got behind it. We got results. I just use myself as an example. Because the background, your upbringing, all these things are of value. Certainly technical know-how, competence helps you be respected, to have authority. But leadership is somehow more than even that. Leadership is almost indescribable. But you know it when you see it or you're around it. And it perhaps has more to do with art than it does science. One of the biggest mistakes of leadership is to promote people who are excellent at their jobs, thinking that this will translate into leadership. It normally won't. Yes, they may be able to lead from the front in technical aspects, but that's not what you're hiring these people for. If you got a great nurse or someone that operates a machine or someone that's great at work in the fields or whatever endeavors you're doing, and that's helpful. But the quality you're looking for, the quality that you want to promote, is that of leadership talent. Will people get behind this person? Does this person have the ability, the capability of inspiring others to move in a common direction, with the common cause? That's what you're promoting for or hiring for. Be a bit weary of people that want to be leaders. At least I am. Because what we don't want is, oh, great leader. That is not the motivation. We need people that just basically can see what needs done or has the vision to do and does it without wanting to be Mr. or Mrs. Big or come off as a know-it-all that, hey, I've got the whole enchilada here. Again, that humility factor. I'd also hold in suspicion people that are overly confident. I would hold in suspect people that are overly confident. Why? Because all topics themselves are infinite. Nobody knows the whole deal. And, perhaps the overconfident people have not been decimated by catastrophic loss. And that's where a whole bunch of growing and humility comes in. Okay. I've also found that the best leaders tend not to want the job or position. Why? Leadership involves a lot of work. There's a lot of 100-hour weeks. Lots of weekends. I don't even know how to be a success in a 40-hour week. Heck, I go back to even early Multiview. We had cots here because we slept all night sometimes here, especially like cost report season. Or sometimes if I was working on some, again, since the financial domain, has been a big thing, building something for an organization, and I would sleep at the office. There's some other people we hear about that's done that too, and they've done okay. But you put in the time, you got to put in the wood. So leadership involves a lot of work, a lot of personalities to manage, a lot of challenges to solve, and a lot of thought. Again, it takes energy. I'm just sharing this. I spend probably an hour and a half every morning planning my day, going through all the initiatives and things that need to be done, reprioritizing them according to what is the highest use of value. And then that's how the day is organized. And you're not just organizing yourself, you're organizing, all your employees. What's the most intelligent way we could go about this today? This day. Not every leader is successful in every situation or environment. There's an infinite number of variables in all situations and companies, ranging from the level of board support, scandals, personal matters, confidence in unfamiliar environments. All these are contributory. And I say this because myself, MVI, we've helped place hundreds of people in leadership positions without charging a penny through the last 27 years. Sometimes it's taking people laterally from one organization to another company, back and forth. Sometimes it's through our proprietary use of videos to identify talent within organizations and promote those people and put them on the executive track. But we've done this. They don't all work out. But you got to place your bets somewhere, knowing your heart will be broken occasionally. And I'm thinking of one of my top leaders, Nancy, you worked with her. Nancy's over here giving me support. She's a great leader. She's done so many hospice or organizational turnarounds. And I was just thinking about one of her clients that had went from a massive deficit to huge surpluses, huge organization. And we brought in a leader that was successful in one environment and it did not translate to the new environment. So sometimes it doesn't work out. Leadership, we find ourselves in leadership positions, and it can be kind of what I'll call a both thing. And you'll see that I usually have a lot of both or multi-thinking, because singular explanations of most things are incomplete at best. And so you can be in a leadership because it's a self-willed thing, meaning, hey, I see the vision, this needs to be done. Or we find ourselves in a leadership position because an event or circumstance summons our powers and we rise to the occasion with the solution. Cost reports are one of those things with me. It's like, oh, God, we owe $3.5 million back. How are we going to pay? Man, there's this snot-nosed Reed guy. Here's the plan. Boom, it works. Hey, let's promote that guy. Boom. So it can be an event thing that's external from your human organism. Okay. Some people say, what is the fast track for becoming an effective leader? Well, I would study the benchmarking of whatever field or industry or endeavor you are. Of course, again, what do we measure? There's hundreds and hundreds of things, so that we know the 50th percentile, the norms of quality and cost, so we can distinguish between great performance, average performance, mediocre performance that is, or great, or poor, whatever. Again, this helps us because we start to ask intelligent questions. We know the numbers and we go, aha, we're not doing so good here. I wonder who is. What can we do? And it's always easy to mimic or rip off ideas from others rather than make them yourselves. So understand the quantification of your field of endeavor. 2, and this was really healthcare, but it also can translate into other sales of consumer products and goods. But focus on mastering the perfect visit or the perfect phone interactions. Perfect interaction. Okay. We know that this single move, especially in the healthcare context, will help you, number one, endear yourself to your troops because you're into it for the right reasons. You're into it for noble purpose. You're giving meaning and value to your troops. And you're solving, number two, all your quality issues as well as your economic issues and woes in a single move. Okay, so there's the fast track. Understand your business, understand the measurements, what's good, bad, whatever. Get some intelligence as to where to precisely direct your energy and resources. Boom. Focus on basically we're saying your customer service, your experience, what people are coming to you for, and what do they want? Predictable experience, predictable delight. And so you work on customer delight, and boom, great things happen. best known success patterns. I talk about it a lot, but there's a lot of newbies out in all the leaders that are listening to this. But this is coming from our experience of benchmarking, primarily post-acute, hospice, home care, based on the monthly benchmarking of, really it's around 1,000 organizations. We understate that purposely because some organizations, they may have 50 sites. I was adding them up for something. It was way over this because we have them down as counted as one, and they got like 50 CMS sites or whatever. So anyway, extracting 989 data elements with 922 cross calculations, and of course work with 1,300 organizations all over. So we're not just making this stuff up. There's a lot of mileage behind this. So best known success patterns. A lot of people say practices. But again, we say best known. Why? Because if you say best practice, you're probably being a little bit silly. Arrogant, in fact. Because nobody, again, knows the whole deal. Nobody has the whole enchilada. Intelligence, again, defined as what? 2 words, pattern recognition. And I'm not going to go into all the philosophical explanation about that. You can go to one of the podcasts that's being released to go deeper there. As far as leadership, this idea of directional correctness is a huge deal. I was sitting in this boardroom with these billionaires. And by the way, I mean, we all have to, I was thinking about this. I don't have a slide on this, but, we all need mentors. And so when I find, like, if one guy's not too snotty or whatever, I'll take, or if someone's like really bright. I remember I was in this one meeting and I said, hey guy, can we meet after this meeting? And then I'll just, we'll take someone's office, say, excuse me, could me and, could we have a quick meeting here? And I'd say, how'd you do it? And I'm always surprised how willing people are to share how they've achieved whatever they have. But I was in one of these meetings, and this guy says, Andrew, you're here because you're an expert. You have more information than anyone than multi of you, on the operations of this post-acute world, especially the hospice home health thing. That's why you're here. And we don't know this. So that's why you're here. But we know there is a directional correctness, that the overall demographics of the United States is an aging population, and that this is a place where we need to be investing and playing. So though you're here because you know the specifics, we don't know all the specifics, but there's something directionally correct to this. And so this is a great concept for leaders to keep in mind, because you go, oh, there's something to this. There's some truth in it. And I think there's at least 5. The first is the utter need for standardization in systems. We cannot grow on any scale without these. Otherwise, we just have messes and low quality. Compensation. There's something to we behave how we're paid. Right? It's like if CMS or whatever changes how an organization is paid, do we just say, well, no, I think we're going to keep doing it the old way? No. We change our systems to accommodate the changes in policy. So we all get there's some directional correctness about comp. Frequent measurement. There's something to frequent measurement, even if we're on a diet or whatever, getting on that scale going, ooh, I shouldn't have had that extra large burrito, or whatever. There's something to that. Accountability. We know there's something to holding people accountable. The screams right now are in government. Oh, hold people accountable, and when you hold employees accountable to actually do their jobs, there's something to that, and having systems to do that. And then the 5th thing is what? Leadership and leadership development, and that's what we're talking about today. There's something to actually studying, focusing, perhaps even systematizing leadership development programs within our respective companies. And one of the things I've noticed there as I was getting ready for this, and I always over-prepare for things, it seems, again, probably comes from that insecurity that's deeply seated in me somewhere. I was just trying to list out some of the greatest leaders, and it's kind of hard to get on kind of my top list. I just tend to be a little critical. I'm critical of myself, and I'm also always wanting the organizations we serve to do well. But I came up with a sheet, and I was shocked at how many leaders came out of the same systems, the same, just multiples. Whereas the other ones are kind of singular. Yeah, this was he or she was great here, or whatever, really incredible leadership here. And then yet these ones are just coming out repeatedly. So what's that say? They're from the same hive. So it's curious, the fact that so many great leaders tend to come from the same organizations, as if it's in the water or some kind of tradition. I mean, I'll just list North Star Hospice of Michigan. Dottie Dremo turned that thing around. I mean, she made everybody do a vow that they were going to do the multi-view and just, commit to standardization. And then Bob Cahill came out of there. He was great. Now Patrick Miller and Leanne. I mean, that's a machine. Karis had a lot of that. Norman, one of the greatest. Paul Say. I mean, you can kind of keep going. So there's something going on where people are picking up on these leadership aspects. That's a reoccurring phenomena. That environment somehow is creating these conditions for success where leadership is modeled, learned, replicated. Okay. Virtually all the frustrations involved with creating and running a hospice or home care organization have already been solved or greatly alleviated. So that's the one thing I think a great leader kind of has to go, I don't have to reinvent everything all the time. Intelligence kind of get past this pride thing and go, hey, most of the stuff's already been done. So if there's anything that's really on my mind that's causing anxiety, frustration, then that's where you start to look for your answers, these best known success patterns, whether you get them from us, this is what we do. We don't have all of them. Some of them are going to come from other domains, fields, others. Peer groups sometimes, but usually peer groups actually have the reverse effect and they hold people back, which is kind of an interesting thing because you get too far out in front of your peer group and they're going, oh, something's wrong there, and that black crab comes back and pulls them right back in the bucket. Anyway, so you got to watch that. But anyway, these people that have solved these things, it's always a small minority. So out of thousands of organizations, it might be 10, a distinct minority. But that's where the leader needs to be going to solve issues. Being that innovator, having the courage to leave the huddled masses and the herd in the dust. And as we get into this deeper, and we are going deep today, can you be okay with muddling through life most of the time? And this really, muddling through leadership. A lot of people think, hey, they have to have the precise master plan, meticulously mapped out of what you're going to do. But the truth is, most of us will have a rough plan, and that plan or vision takes on more shape over time. It almost seems like the universe will only reward the true vision is when you have the courage or the guts to step out And suddenly you can see a little more. And you take that next step and you see more of what needs to do, rather than just sitting back and, well, I'm still planning here. We'll move once I get this plan together, you know. And again, there's just too many variables in life. You got that 50% at least of life that is beyond your control, that happens. And then the other 50% human will, your vision, all that. But recognize that being a leader, again, is a life-changing opportunity for yourself as you have to grow into this position, and as you lead people to success and teach them how to be successful. That's life-changing. And so much of it has to do with these conditions for success. Okay, leadership. Why is it needed? Because no organization can grow beyond the capabilities of the leader. And no leader can build anything on any scale without the help of others. We need others. And one of the payoffs for the CO is that by developing leaders, it frees you a great deal. Frees up your time, energy, as you learn to delegate, knowing that your heart will be shattered from time to time. All organizations need leaders, as they are always in short supply. What I'm saying there is, yeah, you may technically have bodies filling the org chart. But the question of a true leader is, is each name on there giving me the ROI or return I need? Or do I need to upgrade that position? There's the hard question. And all I know is, as I'm looking through videos of people to see whether they should be on the leadership track, and we can go through hundreds of them in short periods of time, and say, yeah, that one's got something to him. We all can self-promote in this world. It's not like you have to have the position title or whatever. Hell, just start doing stuff. Learn to advertise it a little bit to the uppers so they're aware of you. But no smart cookie leader is going to say, this person's really getting something done. I'm going to leave that person in that spot. They're going to say, no, I'm going to invest. We're going to give latitude here or whatever. So there's always room. And in my mind, all organizations are short on leaders. I could use a few right now to lead some initiatives. Okay, assessing leadership. Since we know we need it, well, how do we discover these people? Because we can only grow to the extent that we have leaders. In the one Baldrige winning organization, again, one of the top 2 awards of quality in the world, the Demings Award and the Baldrige, we stopped growing at a certain point because we ran out of leaders. So keeping the pipeline full is important. Of course, in the MBI system, we always have a number 1 and a number 2 people trained for these positions. So that if you lose one, boom, you got another one that can take the file folder and lead it. But to evaluate who you should put on that leadership track, first, do they have intelligence, capability, horsepower, however you want to language it? Because, again, people are not going to get behind someone they perceive as being as dumb as a rock. Now, I'm just putting it out there. They want to see intelligence. I mean, whoever's being led is going to want to see intelligence, capability. And how do you find out if they have this? There's multiple ways. First, the talent of communication. If you're leading others, you've got to get ideas out of your head into the minds of others, so the talent of communication. So I'd take a look at their writing skills as well as their public speaking skills. That's a great thing to do. Next, I look at their talent of organization and their ability to prioritize. That is, distinguish between higher value things from lower value things. That's intelligence. Next, do they have a great attitude? Can-do attitude. Because no one wants to work around someone with a crappy attitude. Attitude, and that's a whole other infinite topic. You can listen to messages on that. But attitude has so much to do with our success in life. Having a great attitude leads to better thoughts. The thoughts that we dwell upon become beliefs. Those things we believe in, we tend to act on. And if we're acting on good beliefs, we have better results. But it starts with attitude, because you can't control your thoughts. No matter what professional hype queen or motivational person is going to tell you, you can control your thoughts. Well, you can't. Not completely. You can shape your defaults or your thought habits. Next, does this person you're assessing have energy, ambition, drive? I mean, they can have all the right thoughts, great, we can do it. But you take a look at their body language and they're just like, leaning back in the lazy boy. No, a leader, you want some juice there. Some drive. You want decisiveness, courage. People don't want squishy leaders that can't make a decision. Or we're gathering data all the time, You're never going to have enough data. There's a point where you just got to say, here's what we have, and we're going. And then that courage just to step out. But indecisive people will take energy away from the group on initiatives. Better to say charge and then go, wait, let's stop, retreat, or let's go this direction. Because you can always do that, and people respect that. Assessing whether someone can be a leader. Do they have a profound understanding of accountability? And our definition of accountability is what? Owning one's life without blaming others or circumstances. Owning every number, owning every result, owning the performance of every employee and say, that's me. Owning your turnover rate. And this usually requires a reconciliation of the light side of life and the dark side of life, the bitter side of life and the sweet side. And having the willingness to inflict some pain when standards or a job is not done to the standards of the organization. Getting some edge. This is why this is called the seldom spoken aspects of leadership. Because this is what people don't hear. They want to hear about the rah-rah. You can do it. Well, you didn't do it. There's the door. Or, here's the pain for not doing it. Whether it be innocent or malicious. Okay, a profound understanding of accountability and what it means. And we'll talk about that later. An interest in standardization. If we cannot grow beyond or to any scale without standardization, where we get away from confused processes. Normally, you don't graduate from college and they say, well, let's teach about finance and business here. Oh yeah, let's teach about standardization. They don't teach it. Very few can even name the steps for standardization or the requirements for standardization or designing Position state of self-control. But people have these childish views, elementary views of what standardization is really all about. Why can multi-view go on average of 3 years without a single phone call ringing more than 3 times where it's not answered by a real human, a competent human? Years. The longest we've ever went is 4.5 years. We went 2 years. One time we went just a few months and it happened, boom. But that's pretty good. Or organizations that went, again, 4,222 visits without a single complaint or screw up, beating the prior record of 3,553. I mean, these are standards so far out, I mean, just off the charts. Because most organizations expect screw-ups, complaints every day. But that just shows you how low the standards are. And all I know is that when there's a screw-up, I'm ready to rip someone's lungs out. In the nicest way possible, of course. But I'm not going to tolerate it. I'd rather fire everybody in the organization and do it all myself if I have to. And that's kind of the attitude. You know, practically speaking, of course, that's not going to happen. But they know you say what you mean what you say. So an interest in standardization where, hey, I really want to know how world-class organizations became world-class. I have an interest in that. And then you show them. And then the last point is confidence. With a willingness to bet on themselves and bet on your company or organization. And the way to find out whether people have confidence almost instantly is, are you willing to take a meager salary with the bulk of it coming from your performance? And that's right where you find out whether you got a wiener or whiner. Oh, I got to do that. I got bills. Come on. And if you got a marketing person that won't bet on themselves, I mean, someone's smoking dope. Because, I mean, are they willing to bet on themselves? That's how you know you've got someone with confidence in themselves, and they're willing to bet on the organization as well. Okay, a leader represents the future. And it seems that human beings need a future. We need a bright horizon. And that's one aspect of leadership. You've got to show this bright horizon. And because otherwise we see people go into depression, they can go into suicide, they can go into all these negative states because they have no vision for where they're going to be. So this is some aspect at least of humankind. That's a reality. We want a bright horizon, and that leader has to be part of that. And I'll just say this, a leader is a truth seeker. Right? What is the truth? What is the best way of doing things? How does life actually operate on this planet? That's why, again, I live in nature, right? I watch, so much of my stuff has to do with nature because I think nature is the truth of how life actually operates on this planet. But what is the truth about this? How do human beings actually behave? What do they respond to? And you take a look and see it's a world of motivations and demotivations and whatever. And how can we align with that to get the results or go in the direction that we want?
We hope you are having the best day of your life. If you need something further, just visit one of the Multiview Incorporated websites or contact us through social media. Smoke signals, carrier pigeons, telepathy have not proven reliable. All calls are answered within 3 rings by a competent, real person. Thank you for listening.